Welcome to 2024 Cardington Superfight. Wait, do you know what Superfight is?
I was hoping you would tell me.
Let's kick it over to Byerly to explain Superfight.
Thanks, guys. Superfight is basically a combination of everything that we love this time of year. Your teachers and brackets. Teachers are going to be going up against each other in some fake competitions this year, chosen by the teachers. Teachers decided things that they thought they were good at, things they thought they were bad at, and things that they thought, nah, it's a toss-up. So we put all those in a big hat and randomly chose who would face each other. Now again, we've got seeds, we've got regions, but for the most part it was all randomly decided. Now the fun part is where you, the students and the teachers of Cardington, are going to get to decide who is going to make it through the brackets. Brackets are going to go out soon, and you're going to have the opportunity to pick who you think will win in each of the challenges. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Byerly. Now let's get into the selection show. Now let's start with the first region, the Art Club region. Your number one overall seed in the Art Club region is Miss Ebert. This is her 15th year teaching here, and she reigns from the Otterbein Conference.
Now, that's a very well-deserved one seed, if I have to say so myself.
And she will be going up against either the 4th seeded Mr. Brim from the Ohio State Conference, or the 5 seed from the University of Dayton Conference, Mrs. Fitzpatrick Kirk. Moving down to the 2 seed, who is Mr. Groves from Ohio University Conference, against the 3 seed, Mr. Treese from the University of Phoenix Online Conference. A well-renowned conference, I might add.
Very well-renowned. You know, everybody knows about them, and I'm surprised they're not the 1 seed, to be honest with you.
And I'm sure Mr. Groves can paint a tire, but I'm not sure about changing one. So I think Mr. Treese might have a little edge up in that one. Now we're going to move down into the Honor Society region of the bracket, who your number 1 seed is going to be Mrs. Price. Mrs. Price has spent 26 years teaching here, and she is from the Ohio University Conference.
Now, I do have to say, I'm a March Madness guy myself. Just hoping this 1 seed doesn't come up a little short.
And I was going to say, that's a good point there, Aiden. But you see, she's got a tough draw here because the 4 and the 5 seed, they are not sleepers in this bracket. Now, the 4 seed is going to be Mr. Byerly against the 5 seed, Mrs. Conley. Both conference rivals from the Bowling Green Conference, and I hope those Falcons taught them how to fall from high distances. Now, the surprise 3 seed of the Honor Society region of the bracket is going to be from the Mount Vernon Nazarene Conference, Mr. Getzman. Now, I think it's a little surprising for the Honor Society region, don't you think?
I'm going to be honest with you. I do not know how the 4 and the 5 seed just came short of Mr. Getzman because he's not very Honor Society-like.
But now we're actually going to move on to the 2 seed, who I'm surprised wasn't the 1 seed. The advisor of the NHS for Cardington, Mr. Staley from the Ohio State University Conference.
Wait, so you're telling me the NHS advisor wasn't the 1 seed?
Nope, surprising. The selection committee, they were really random this year with how they decided to go about seeding.
Very random. As if we just didn't even know what was happening until it happened.
Moving back up into the Science Club region, the number 1 seed, and I think this is well deserved, of course, is Mrs. Wells. She is from the Bowling Green State University Conference, and this is her 19th year teaching here. Now, she's the longest tenured science teacher in the building, and I think she's ready to dominate the Science Club region. Couldn't you agree?
I agree very much, actually.
Now, she also has a tough look ahead as she goes back to the 4 or 5 seed. Well, the 4 seed this year is going to be Miss Wallet from the Wilmington University Conference against the 5 seed from the Marietta Conference, Miss Brown. Now, I don't think Mrs. Wells is going to have a fun time with whoever's coming up next there, but I think her long time here is going to propel her to victory.
You know, we don't always go by years. We prefer the term experience. She has a lot of experience, and I feel like that'll take her pretty far.
Now, moving down in the bracket, we're going to have the 2 seed against the 3 seed, and of course the 2 seed is going to be Mr. Monahan from the Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania Conference. And in a random trivia challenge against the 3 seed Miss Palmer from the Ohio Northern University Conference, I think we're going to see these teachers be put up to a real challenge of who's got the most brains.
I feel like this could come out to be a very big rivalry. I know there's not a lot of bad blood between them now, but this competition might just have them fired up.
Now, and this is a very competitive region. Who's your favorite to come out of the Science Club region?
You know, I gotta go with the OG, Miss Wells. She's just got that dog in her.
Sounds good. And we're going to be moving into the final region of the bracket, the Varsity Club bracket, who the number 1 seed is Mr. Tomasetti, who comes from the Kent State University Conference, and this is his 15th year here. And, you know, he's looking to cruise to a Final Four. Now, an upset could be upon us in this region, as the 4 and 5 seeded matchup is an intense one. The 4 seed, Mrs. Hughes, from the Ohio Northern University Conference, is trying to use that PhD to get her to the championship. But I'm afraid she won't be able to make it out of the plans, as she's going against the 5 seed, Mrs. Klinger, from the Ohio Wesleyan Conference. Now, genuinely, Aiden, I think Mrs. Klinger is a very undefeated person in this bracket.
I agree. You know, she knows a lot of stuff, and like I said, this could be any competition whatsoever, and she has words as her weapons.
That's a good point there, Aiden. But as we're moving down to the 2 versus 3 matchup, we're going to see 2 coaches can lay down their intense side and be a little gentle with some pottery making. Now, the 2 seed is Mr. Hobbs from the Ashford University Conference. He's going to try to take down the track coach, Mr. Osborne, who's the 3 seed from the Tiffin University Conference, who may have fast feet, but let's see if he has gentle hands. Now, Aiden, this is going to be a very intense battle for the Cardington Superfight 2024 bracket. Do you have a favorite to win it all?
You know, I would like to say Coach Osborne has a chance, but he doesn't. So, I'm going to say my favorite has to be Miss Wells.
Miss Wells.
She just knows her stuff. She's just all around her. She's her.
Now, I think I'm going to go with a seasoned vet here. I think I'm going to go with Mrs. Price to take it all. I just think she has the experience, she has the years under her belt, and I think this just might be her year.
That is true, but we can't forget, Mr. Staley's also up there.
Oh, yes.
He knows a lot of random trivia, and that knowledge can come in handy very well.
It's going to be in a very intense region, but Aiden, I think we're going to wrap up the selection show here. Good luck to all of the teachers in their respected regions. And I think this is going to be a good super fight.
I agree. Alright, so I'm going to be completely honest with you. In a wilderness survival challenge, we have Mr. Brim versus Mrs. Fitzpatrick Kirk. Brim is just going to play some instruments, and I don't really know how that's going to help him in a wilderness survival challenge. But on the other side of the spectrum, Miss Fitzpatrick Kirk, she can guide herself to a nice and loving victory. So I'm going to take her to win this first challenge. Now, whoever wins that gets to face Miss Ebert in the fine dining on grasshoppers and other insects challenge. Miss Ebert, she's gritty, she's a basketball coach. I can't help but feel like she's going to win that thing. Now, in the fastest to change a car tire challenge, Mr. Groves, as an art teacher, I don't see him being very strong or very physically great. Mr. Treese, on the other hand, he may have the mind of a volleyball coach, but he's also not the smartest. So if I could pick a draw, I would. But if I have to pick one winner, I'm going to guess with Treese, because at least he has a little bit of strength. We have Mr. Byerly going against Mrs. Conley in the fall from the most extreme height. I don't get how you're gonna have Conley jumping out of an airplane or off of anything high. Mr. Byerly, he might make a mess. If he does. But Mr. Byerly's got that dog in him, and you have to acknowledge him. So I'm gonna go Mr. Byerly with taking the win on that one. And whoever wins the Mr. Byerly and Mrs. Conley thing, which I'm thinking it's gonna be Mr. Byerly, we have them going against Mrs. Price and the fewest lifetime traffic tickets. You have Miss Price, who follows and loves all the rules. You have Byerly, who follows the rules. So if I'm being completely honest, it's just a matter of who just slipped up one time. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Mrs. Price always sticks to the rules and never slips up. So I'm gonna go with her to win that competition. For our next competition, we have Mr. Getzman against Mr. Staley. And that's a best Pictionary drawer competition. Getzman draws up plays a bunch, but they don't always work out very well. Mr. Staley has an underrated mindset and everything, so I'm just gonna have to go with Mr. Staley on that one. And then on the other side of things, we have Mrs. Wallet versus Miss Brown. It's Miss Wallet. Now on the other side of things, we have Miss Wallet versus Miss Brown in a target shooting with a bow competition. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think Miss Brown is gonna shoot a bow. And Miss Wallet's an ag teacher, so that's an easy win for Miss Wallet. And whoever wins that competition gets to face Miss Wells in the pie baking contest. Miss Wells is an expert baker. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who can compete with that, so I'm gonna say Miss Wells is taking the win on that. In our next challenge, we have Miss Palmer versus Mr. Moneyhon and a random trivia challenge. Miss Palmer might know a lot about pie and the math sense, but Mr. Moneyhon has so many random facts interjected in his brain every day, there's no way he doesn't win that. We have Mrs. Hughes and Mrs. Klinger facing off in a rock, paper, scissors competition. I feel like with rock, paper, scissors, there's always somebody who waits a little bit, the extra amount, so you can see what the other person's gonna play. And I feel like Miss Klinger always reads that in her books, and Miss Hughes may have a PhD, but it's not in cheating. So I'm gonna go with Miss Klinger for the winner there. And whoever wins that competition is facing Mr. Tomasetti in the fastest typing competition. I cannot see Mr. Tomasetti typing faster than like 5 words a minute because he has to stop and stretch. So I'm gonna go with whoever won the first competition. And in one of our last competitions for the first round, we have Mr. Hobbs versus Mr. Osborne in the pottery making competition. I don't see either of them having gentle hands. They both get distracted very easily, and I don't see either of them having the patience to make pottery. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I would flip a coin and say Mr. Osborne because he's my coach.